There are so many benefits that come from doing muscle activation techniques, but one in particular surprises a lot of people. And in this week's episode of the Exercises Health Podcast is exactly what we want to talk about. We're going to cue our introduction and dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health Podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schaumburg. We're your hosts, Charlie.
And Julie.
And today we're discussing this idea of an unexpected benefit that so many of our clients experience when they start doing muscle activation techniques on a consistent basis. So we want to let you know that if you want to start taking action on what we're talking about today, that's exactly what we can help you with at our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, where we specialize in muscle activation techniques. So all you need to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to our website, www.matschaumburg.com, click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. So most people, when they start MAT, muscle activation techniques, they're like, well, I have this pain, or I have this tightness, or this area of my body feels weird, my joints feel achy, something like that. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, I really feel like I'm losing strength, or, my mobility is getting limited, because those benefits align with so many of the promoted benefits of MAT. Hey, your muscles are going to get stronger, your joints are going to move better, you're going to, have less soreness, more resilience to injury, more resilience to everyday life, tightness will start to decrease, everything like that, right? Like that, those are the often promoted benefits of MAT. But there's something that we see happen time and again with our clients who are consistent with MAT that is a benefit that is very unexpected to them, that they find is actually massively impactful for their everyday life, what they're doing throughout their day, doing their favorite activities. This benefit has a huge impact on all of that.
That's right. And the benefit is that a lot of people feel that they actually have awareness of individual muscle groups or areas, right? If you're not familiar with like muscle groups, it's like an area of my body. Because before MAT, most of the time, the only time you really like feel your body is like when it's being highlighted to your brain because it's hurting, right? Or it's really tight. And then sometimes people start feeling muscles when they work out. But what's really cool is that when people start getting muscle activation techniques, it allows more and more muscles to be turned on, even if you're not like regularly training them in the gym or exercising them in the gym. And what this leads to, it is the reason why your movements, like what Charlie was saying, your movements get smoother and easier. You feel less tight, you feel stronger. And this is another really cool thing because when you're moving and using your body with like a more, I want to say like a full set of muscles, right? Like more muscles are turned on, then movement gets so much easier and consistent for you. And so this highlight of, hey, I'm able to feel and identify and like acknowledge more and more individual muscle areas or groups. This is one of the biggest things that leads to all those really cool benefits that people, well, this is a cool benefit, but the ones that people think of, you know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. Because, as we are doing MAT and strengthening that signal from your brain to your muscles, we're also reteaching your brain. Your brain is learning how to use each individual muscle again, okay? And what ends up happening is as your brain gets enough exposure to that and learns how to access and use each individual muscle, learns what it feels like when each individual muscle contracts, now all of a sudden that's something that your brain can recognize and it can more easily access the ability to do that and more easily perform that ability, not just on the MAT table, but when you're working out, when you're playing golf, when you are doing stuff around your house, you're able to feel each individual muscle, each group of muscles contract, as opposed to just kind of like general fatigue in an area, like, I go and I golf and I just kind of feel my body flinging. It's like, no, like I swing now and I can feel my obliques contracting. I can feel my, my hip muscles contracting. I can feel these things happening through my shoulder. I'm stabilizing here. I'm really squeezing here. And that awareness allows people to start to make really neat adjustments throughout their day in how they are doing activities. So think about this. you are moving a bunch of boxes around your house, okay? Maybe you're reorganizing your storage area, okay? And you're moving boxes. In one scenario, you're just lifting them up, putting them down, lifting them up, putting them down, lifting them up, putting them down, okay? And then you wake up the next day, you're like, oh, my back is really sore, all the way from, my butt all the way up to my neck is just, really, really throbbing because the entire day you're just, lifting the boxes, putting them down, lifting the boxes, putting them down. Versus a scenario where you're doing the same activity outside looking in, lifting the boxes, putting them down, but you're feeling as you go along, okay, I can feel my glutes engage. I can feel, my back muscles engage. I can feel, my upper back, my rhomboids, my upper traps, everything like that around my shoulder blades and shoulders engage. And then you can feel, ooh, I'm starting to use this group of muscles more now than I was at the beginning. Okay, let me start to shift how I'm doing this. Let me bend from my knees a little bit more. Let me, pull my shoulders back a little bit. You can make these little micro adjustments all along the way. And so what that does is it relieves stress from the areas that are getting too stressed, okay? And then it allows you to kind of get through those activities and not feel like you just got ran over by a truck. Not feeling like, oh my gosh, from here to here is just throbbing today, because you are aware the entire time of your ability to engage certain groups of muscles, your ability to have certain muscles work. And then when you're feeling it change, you are able to make changes in how you're doing things.
Yeah, Charlie, I love that you brought that up in how it's almost like taking your body from doing like this mindless, gross movement, like big general movement, to being able to almost like break it down to its components. Because really, when we are doing MET with someone, we're kind of like giving like a little tutoring session to each individual muscle group. Because if you think about your day, the things you're doing, the activity you're doing, or you think about even when you go to the gym, the movements that you're doing, the training sequence that you're doing like a multiple muscle group situation, right? Like there's never a way to isolate anything. In an MET, we try to get closer and closer to that isolation place where we can, hey, just focus on this little muscle group. It's almost like taking that muscle back to kindergarten and being like, hey, do you remember your ABCs? Because we think you know them, but let's just check. And just those little tune-ups that happen in there can make a really big difference. Even if it's a muscle group you use a lot, like your glutes. So many people use their glutes all the time, yet they still feel like my glutes are sleeping. And it's like, well, how is that possible? You're using them all the time, right? And sometimes they just need that little tutoring lesson. Like, I remember when my daughter first started Spanish 2 years ago, they started with the alphabet. And it was so funny because she was singing the alphabet in Spanish, and I have been speaking Spanish just conversationally for a couple years, well, like 10 years ago for 10 years. And so when she was singing it to me, I'm like, oh my goodness, I forgot like some of those letters, like because I don't practice it, right? I never get that tune-up. I never get the private kindergarten tutoring lesson on that piece. But just fine-tuning that piece helped me with, figuring out my language, or helping her with spelling, or helping her do more fine-tuned things as she's learning the language. This is the same thing with your muscles. It's like you're using your muscles all the time, but sometimes we need to kind of take a muscle group out of the bigger picture and try to give it a private tutoring lesson and then throw it back in. And when you do that, that's when you're able to do the things like Charlie was talking about, where, hey, we're still going to do these big motions, but the pieces that are participating in that big motion are going to be more ready, more able to identify what's going on. You're going to feel them more, like usually in a good way, not necessarily like in that sort of achy way, unless you really overdo it. But, you're able to feel what's going on more, and that will take your physical, awareness and your physical abilities really to the next level, just because of that change in awareness.
Exactly. Now you may be hearing this being like, okay, well, this definitely seems like a feature of MAT, but what's actually the benefit of this? Like that I get through. Yeah, sure. Okay, maybe the next day I'm not as achy and sore and everything like that. So have you ever seen those those memes where it's like, how I think I look like when I'm dancing, or how I think I look when I'm dancing is like, Beyonce dancing. And then it's like what I actually look like when I'm dancing is like a baby deer tripping over itself. Okay, so this makes you more like Beyonce, where it's like literally like you're able to control every single aspect of your body in the exact ways that you're wanting to. When we're talking about like leaving an MAT session and feeling like, oh my gosh, my body is like actually supercharged, what that is not just like more energy in your body, it's an awareness of like, okay, wow, I didn't realize that I had those glutes back there. I didn't realize that I had, those abs there. I didn't realize that I had those shoulders there, because it all just felt like some level of numb before. Not like numb, not like, like tingling, but just like there was a level of like unawareness. Like it wasn't crystal clear. It was kind of like smudged over. It's like, okay, like there's something there, but I'm not quite sure what it is. And then you leave your MAT session and you're like, okay, yeah, no, my understanding of my shoulders, my understanding of my abs, my understanding of, my leg muscles, this is crystal clear now. Like when I want to move this way, I can move exactly that way. And it is ultimately what creates that feeling of physical freedom within your body, that feeling of ownership that you have with your body, where you're just like, okay, if I want to do this activity, I can do this activity with full confidence, knowing that not only can my body handle it, and I'm going to feel well during it, but it's not going to thrash me after, and I'm going to be able to do this thing in a way that feels really good for my body while I'm doing it. And that largely comes from this awareness piece of, again, your brain learning how to access all of your different muscles and learning what it feels like to connect and squeeze and contract all of your different muscles, and then being able to practice that and use that in your daily life.
So one of the really cool benefits of muscle activation techniques is your ability to have heightened awareness in very specific muscle groups or muscles in general. And this, again, will lead to you having more body ownership, more awareness, more ability to do the things that you want to do. And even though it's not one of those benefits that's like, oh, it got rid of my tightness or it got me stronger, it is really one of the root things that happens because we're turning muscles on. We're connecting them better to the brain so that your brain can identify, oh, there's that muscle. Oh, when we bend over, we do that muscle. Oh, when we do a crunch, we do that muscle. And that's what leads to that ease of movement, which is what allows you to do more and more things in your life.
Exactly. So if you want to start taking action on what we're talking about today, that's exactly what we can help you with at our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, where we specialize in muscle activation techniques. So all you need to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to our website, www.matschaumburg.com. Click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We always appreciate your time and attention every single week. Your eyes on YouTube, your ears on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Wherever you consume our content, if you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating and review, it always means the world to us when you do. We are wishing you a fantastic week, and we will talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.